AdFest 2024. We have a pretty strong lineup of guest speakers and sessions for you here, and wanted to just make sure that everyone's comfortable. Wanted to invite Jeff to get started as our first speaker to get our lineup going, and yeah, welcome everybody.
You must be from New York. Well, good morning and welcome to Paradise, officially. Beautiful Ritz-Carlton Reserve. I could certainly tell you about it, and I've told a lot of you guys about it for the last year, but you got to experience it, right? You got to really soak it in. And it really allows us to have an attitude of appreciation and an attitude of gratitude. So just wanted to have Cal, who's the manager of the hotel, spend a few minutes with us this morning and talk about what experience means for the Ritz-Carlton. So help me welcome Cal.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Paradise. How are we feeling? Excellent, excellent. The reason why I brought my phone is because I am so passionate about our brand that I have a tendency of speaking about it for so long that I usually exceed my time limit. So I'm going to try to keep it as concise as possible while delivering a very powerful message. So as Jeff said, my name is Cal Katesh. I'm the hotel manager here. I've been at this stunning resort for the past 4 months, but I started my journey with Marriott approximately 13 years ago at the Ritz-Carlton Sarasota with very, very humble beginnings. I was a dishwasher. And what ultimately made me fall in love with the brand is this card over here. We refer to it as the Credo card. It's essentially a card that's composed of 5 different elements that are referred to as the gold standards, which ultimately are the guiding principles that we use on a day-to-day basis to serve our guests with excellence. So essentially, this is the knowledge that we need in order to provide exceptional experiences for our guests. And not only is it relevant to the hospitality industry, it's also relevant to me as a human being. It teaches me how to become a better version of myself and a better human being in the process. As an example, one of the gold standards is very simple and straightforward, and you might have heard it before. We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. A very simple yet powerful statement that gives you a sense of pride. As I'm speaking to you right now, I'm getting the chills, as a matter of fact. It gives you a sense of pride that tells you and confirms that you are a lady or a gentleman, that you are not a worker, you are not an employee, you are another human being serving another human being. There are a lot of other principles, but I'm not going to go in length, otherwise I'm going to exceed my time limit, as I said. So in addition to that, there is a very important initiative that we teach our ladies and gentlemen on how to trigger that emotional engagement with our guests. That emotional engagement is key to creating a very special relationship with a guest that ultimately translates into a very strong bond that could ultimately translate into a long-term friendship that we have with one another. And that concept is the art, ladies and gentlemen, of living in the now, the present moment. As we know, time is broken into 3 different dimensions. You have the past, the present, and the future. And as I'm speaking to you right now, I guarantee you that a lot of us are thinking about the future or the past. You know, yesterday I could have done this better. Oh, by the way, when I finish this function, this is what I gotta do. But the question to ask is, are you giving your full and divided attention? Are you truly focused in the now? Because if you're not going to be able to unlock your full potential as a human being. And that's the key to success, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life. If you want to excel at whatever you do, you need to master the art of living in the now. That's the second concept that we teach our ladies and gentlemen. And then the third one is a very powerful concept as well. It's what we refer to as love. In our industry, it's very easy to receive constructive criticism. We get it at all times. We could have done this better. You know, this is what happened. And we have to be, we call that the gift of feedback. It's very, very important to us. That's what allows us to improve upon our operation and become a better brand in the process. But what's equally important is to also recognize one another and express that love that we have for one another. That love is the equivalent of the fuel that's gonna give you the motivation, the energy to persevere day in and day out. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the secret to our success. The gold standards rooted in the Credo card, learning the art of living in the moment, and most importantly, let's not forget to express the love that we have for one another and recognize our hard work. And I would like to finish it with a very powerful statement. It's referred to as the Credo. The Credo in Latin means belief. The Credo is a statement that we are required to memorize by heart. It enlivens our brand promise. It's our commitment to you and our promise to you. And I would like to recite it to you before I conclude my presentation. The Ritz-Carlton is a place where the genuine care and comfort of our guests is our highest mission. We pledge to provide the finest personal service and facilities for our guests who will always enjoy a warm, relaxed, yet refined ambience. The Ritz-Carlton experience enlivens the senses, instills well-being, and fulfills the unexpressed wishes and needs for our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, in the days to come, that's going to be our promise to you, and we very much look forward to serving you with excellence. Thank you. I'm sorry, thanks. Very good. Now, how do I get a pre outside? I will get you one. Absolutely. Thanks so much.
So, again, I think we can all learn a lot from what Cal mentioned as well, and really experience it over the next several days together. So wanted to just take a few minutes as well to just, again, celebrate, again, all the amazing brands and our agency partners in the room as well. I don't know if you know this or not, but Ad Week is happening right now. There's about 100,000 people right now crammed into the Penn Station area. We have trams if you guys want to go back to New York and experience that outside. But really, again, we strategically picked this time to really go against the grain and really allow people to come together. A select amount of people, actually. There's only 96 rooms here at the resort, which, again, we've taken over for the next 4 days, right? And so very limited. So everyone here is here strategically, is here invited by somebody on our team. As well. We turned down about 5 times the amount of people that registered or tried to come to AdFest, by the way, which is interesting, and people are already on the wait list for next year. Again, this is our way to kind of really just pour back to clients and prospects as well. We don't take relationships lightly at all. I've been in the industry now for 29 years, on agency side for some of the biggest holding companies, to boutiques, to client side, and then this side of the table, overseeing sales and marketing with Danny for the last 5 years as well. So again, we're all here very strategically. Again, my challenge too is to really kind of have a growth mindset, think out of the box. I know some of you guys have titles of growth, right? And really at the end of the day, it's to leave this thinking differently, to leave thinking about how search and shopping behavior is changing as well. It's no longer about searching in a box, right? My 11-year-old back home searches purely through voice everywhere she goes, okay? Walks around with her phone, speaks to Alexa in the house, tries to order like pink cars online through voice, which can happen, and you have to disable your functions. It's painful when that actually happens as well. But look, I mean, we're here as a David and Goliath story every day, right? There's just a different G in this battle that we face every day, right? You'll hear about this from stage a little bit, about really kind of, again, Google, about what's going on. You'll hear about the need for diversification. No longer is it just something that's a must, something nice to have. It's really a must as well. So again, as we're here learning over the next few days, our challenge for existing clients is to really kind of think about, how do I grow, right? How do I do more? For people that are new friends or prospects in the room too, it's like, go spend time with those people, hear what they have to say, ask questions, be curious, learn from each other as well. So again, definitely want to challenge everybody to do that as well, but wanted to really just invite our first speaker up today. I met Talia when we were actually having dinner together at an event, and when I told her and I gave her a golden ticket to the event, she didn't believe me at first. She's like, "Is this like Willy Wonka's event with the golden ticket?" And really, when I said, no, it's real, and this is who we're bringing together, and would love you to be part of it as well. Again, that's just how we're able to connect dots and bring people together. So wanted to just Talia, wanted to bring her up, kick us off, and then we can dive in as well. But today's format as well, we'll go through some quick announcements. I got the sheet of paper so I wouldn't forget it, so it's right in front of me. So really quick, by the way, really quick, sign-up sheets in the back table, bathrooms to your left, over here behind stage. If you haven't gotten your bag as well, back corner, breakfast, lunch will be here. And then we're also going to be back here for dinner tonight as well. So I believe I got all the announcements, Nick, but help me welcome Talia so we can kick off.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I've lowered this a bit. Oh, no, I guess you guys can hear me. Good morning. Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I hope everyone's coffee is kicked in. This Puerto Rican coffee is awesome. And again, this truly is the golden ticket. I am so appreciative to be here. So excited to kick this content off. I also want to just thank the unsung heroes of this AdFest, Nick, Lacey, and Rachel behind the scenes. I think a lot of us marketers know what goes into event planning. I swear it is harder than pulling off a Super Bowl spot. There are so many logistics that you have to take into account. You have to respond in real time when something doesn't arrive, when a sign isn't printed correctly and it has a typo. I haven't seen that anywhere, by the way, but I've had some of those experiences myself, so I can really relate. So I'm really excited to be here to talk today about human intelligence. I know that AI is going to be coming up a lot. And it is a new and cutting-edge innovation that we as marketers are all very excited to engage and experiment with. However, I am by no means an AI expert. I look forward to some of the other panels and learning more about AI. But what I would say I am is an HI expert, a human intelligence expert. I have a pretty rigorous academic background in psychology and behavioral science, and experience applying that behavioral science and psychology lens across multiple brands and industries throughout my career. So my hope for today is that I can make a case study for you to start employing some quick win and scalable HI tactics across your brands and organizations. While not cutting edge technology, it is indeed timeless. What you'll start to understand is that humans are all much more similar than we realize, and we actually respond relatively predictably. And so if you can anticipate that response, just like the Ritz-Carlton seems to anticipate our needs here, you can really meet the needs of customers, surprise, delight, and retain them. Next slide, here we go. Oh, back. Okay. But before I kick off, a quick who am I? Because one thing I also know from my psychology background is that when someone starts talking, you're all trying to kind of categorize me. What the F is a fractional CMO? What are all these brands next to her name? Is it possible she's actually engaging with all of them? The answer is yes, but that's not where my story started. So about 9 months ago, I left my job as the head of brand strategy and media at Pizza Hut. Learned a ton there, very competitive, commoditized category. But I ultimately had always wanted, I had an itch to embed myself across multiple organizations. I've been known to cold message CEOs and CMOs on LinkedIn with, have you thought about this idea? This trend is happening in culture, your brand should jump on it. A lot of times people would respond to me. And so then I thought, why don't I just do this professionally and make this a real thing? So I essentially jumped ship from Pizza Hut and took a bet on myself and started my own brand advisory. And effectively what that means is I show up across organizations in 3 ways. One is a brand partner, so that's a brand advisor, a thought partner to CEOs and CMOs to anticipate trends, plan for long-term growth, and define and drive top-level initiatives. So that's kind of how I show up with the Ring brand. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Ring Doorbell, and actually Weight Watchers as I get them ready for winter diet season. I also operate as a fractional CMO, which is where I effectively assign a fraction of my time, and I serve as an interim leader for a few brands that are in a stage of transformation or in need of a temporary marketing leader to shake things up and reestablish some process, strategy, etc. So that's how I've been working with Maggiano's and Del Taco. And then I also sometimes just operate as an ace up your sleeve. So I have some clients that are just like, I need help unsticking a big problem. I know you think differently. You can typically spot opportunities. I have an interesting marketing lens, which I think you'll start to see in a bit because of my behavioral science and psychology background, which I hope to impart to you guys all today. So I'm just an ace up their sleeve. Bring me in. Let's tackle some opportunities. Let's spot some opportunities, and let's drive some outcomes. And together, we just identify some low-hanging fruit and big rock opportunities that we can tackle together. These are ideas of low-hanging fruit and big rock, and I'm actually not going to play this video right now, but I'm very averse and allergic to just like consultant speak, like low-hanging fruit and big rock with nothing to actually back it up. So I wanted to actually show some examples, tangible examples of what that means. So you'll see this in the deck later, but I'm not going to kind of play this video now. But essentially, at Weight Watchers, I did a really cool partnership with Zoom where during the pandemic, it would send you a push notification to stand up every 15 minutes that was branded because everyone was sitting too long. And then low-hanging fruit is just optimizing some coupons that we saw a really nice return on at Del Taco. Okay, so back to human intelligence. Many people remark that I've had a pretty eccentric career path. They're right. It's been industry agnostic. I started off in entertainment at Discovery Channel, and I was at Bravo, so worked with all the Real Housewives and Vanderpump Rules. If anyone's a Bravo fan, come find me. We can chat about that. And that's really where I really got my appreciation for events. I was telling Rachel last night, pulling off events for the Housewives is no small feat. So I kind of have PTSD from events, and I have mad respect for people that coordinate them. Then I was at Weight Watchers. That's when we had just signed Oprah as our brand ambassador, so got to work really closely with her during the brand's transformation at that point. Now the brand is massively transforming again as they just signed on a GLP clinic, so the category is changing a lot, and I'm really excited to help them dig in into how the brand's going to transform, but also stay relevant to their base. I was at Ring as the head of Alarm. Ring is the doorbell company owned by Amazon. They were launching their alarm product, so was there to kind of help launch that vertical for them. And then most recently, as you guys heard, I was at Pizza Hut. And so everyone says, isn't it so hard to like go from industry to industry? Like, it's hard to learn a new category. But what I always argue is there's actually one superseding similarity that enables me or anyone to work in any and every category. And that's understanding that we are all looking to connect with the same consumer. Yes, some people are looking to connect with a millennial, or some with a male-female, some with a female with eczema, some with a woman that's about to have a baby. Yes, but ultimately we're all humans. And our jobs as marketers are to connect with, motivate, and inspire action from humans. So with that, when it comes to humans, my academic background and my on-the-job experience has reinforced 4 things. 1, humans are more alike than different. 2, we are primarily irrational thinkers. As much as we want to believe we are rational, we are primarily irrational. And I will just show you in a minute how much of our thinking is irrational, instinctive, fast, versus thoughtful and concerted. Our human brain is hard-coded with a default operating system, how it perceives and responds to information. And we can all tailor our marketing efforts to work best with our default human operating systems to maximize our marketing returns. So truly, when I say operating system, I'm not kidding. It's not the iOS on your phone, but it is truly psychologically proven that neuroscientists say we have 2 operating systems. Daniel Kahneman, he actually won a Nobel Prize for this, outlining this for the behavioral psychology community. So system 1, we use 95% of the time. It's unconscious, it's fast, it's associative. Examples of using that system are last night when you walked across a puddle, you didn't think about it, you just stepped over it. System 1 is where you're looking at me and you're wondering about my outfit, how old I am, you've made some assumptions. You didn't intentionally do that, it just happened. Another system 1 is tying your shoe or seeing an ad in your Instagram feed and just feeling like that's cool. System 2 is rational thinking, 5% of the time, scary, sad, but it's the truth. We use this rational thinking 5% of the time, and the reason that we use it only 5% of the time is it takes time. It takes effort, it's slow, it's more logical. Examples of your rational thinking or system 2 are driving on a really windy road, reading an earnings report for a client, multiplying 17 by 24. Does anyone know what that is? 408. So those are examples of the 2 systems in play at all times. So understanding these 2 systems, I want to share what I believe to be the 8 most accessible and applicable psychology and behavioral science principles that take advantage of the system 1 operating system, because that's what consumers are using 95% of the time. So let's invest our effort in understanding and optimizing how we show up to work best with that system. So my hope is to make this super tangible so you can immediately start to think about how you can apply these concepts throughout your brands and businesses and start to see some real returns. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into 8 of these topics. And I've gotten a chance to meet some of you throughout my time here, and I've already started to think about how I can apply some of these to your brands. So get excited for some random brand mentions. Okay. So our first principle is we are social creatures, and this is social proof theory. So it is essentially a phenomenon where decision-making becomes credible because it is validated by the behavior of others. So you hear about this all the time, often herd mentality. We're always looking for what others are doing to validate that's something we should do to do something, right? So this is an example of something I actually did for Pizza Hut. You can see here we had an original pan pizza, and we charged an extra $1.70 for that pan pizza. And we didn't really mix so high on it. And it was really profitable, though, because the cost of goods on our pan is the same as the cost of goods on all of our other pizzas, so it's pure profit. And I said, how can we get this to mix higher? So we put a most popular badge next to it because it was most popular during specific hours. And essentially, we mixed 17% higher when we just added that badge. So what that equates to is traditionally per day we were moving, let's say, 100 pan pizzas. We were all of a sudden moving 117 pan pizzas per day, multiply that per week, and we were driving an incremental $225 of profit per store per week. All just by adding that most popular badge. Because again, people are looking for that validation that this is most popular, this is what most people want, right? So think about how you can do that across your businesses or brands. The framing effect. This is another really interesting one. I say when you can't change the product or price, change the prism. So we draw a different conclusion about a product or a deal depending on how it is presented. So this I actually saw on one of my friend's brands that I was helping him with. He's got this skylight camera frame product, and I was like, the subscription, like how many people are attaching it to the subscription? This frame's pretty expensive. Did they understand the value of adding it? He's like, we have like about a 50% attach rate. I was like, have you ever dimensionalized the cost in per day? Because I mean, you've seen like the SPCA does this a lot too. Like for only 11 cents a day, you can save a cat. And essentially, this really did start to drive a much higher subscription attach rate because again, he didn't change the price. He just changed the prism with how he presented it. And all of a sudden people were able to justify, I spend $6 a day on coffee. Surely I can throw 11 cents towards getting the most features out of this product. So again, when you can't change the price or product, change the prism. Another way that I applied this on one of the brands or when I was at Pizza Hut is here you see at Pizza Hut, we had a pretty big value problem. We could never win on value, and value is what drives the category. So we had Domino's constantly $7.99 large one tops. We could never afford that. Our profitability just wouldn't work. Our economics didn't work for that. Then you had Papa Pairings, Papa John's at $6.99, and here we are trying to hawk a $12 pizza, and it's like crap. We just can't win. So again, I said, how do we do a reframe? And so we launched a 50-cent topping initiative, and that drove a ton of sales. The reason being, everyone was talking in dollars, and all of a sudden we were talking in cents. So again, same pizza, but because I reframed it, I changed the prism, and I was no longer talking about dollars. I was putting a focus on the toppings that were in the 50 cents versus the dollar of the pizzas. We moved a lot more units. So again, didn't change the product, didn't change the price, just changed the frame. Prospect theory loss aversion. So this one is, we avoid pain more than we look to acquire gains. So studies would show, and this is based on fMRI, so looking at actually like functional brain imaging, our brains perceive a lot more pain to lose, say, $1,000 than to win $1,000. So we are wired to avoid loss than to acquire gains. So what this makes me think of is, I feel like insurance companies are just like ripe to leverage this, right? Because I would probably lean into avoiding a loss of $12,900 by just investing $189 a month. So really priming that loss aversion to kind of jumpstart in someone's mind, because everyone is we always want to avoid loss. And so we are wired to avoid loss. Insurance policies are there to help us avoid loss, but how you can really kind of prime, ideally making this more salient, would benefit those industries greatly. And establishing operation. This is one of my favorite ones. And I actually texted Nick last night. Skechers is not here, so I can make this joke. They were supposed to come. Sucks for them. They're not here. So Skechers is not cool. Stop trying to make it. It's just not cool. I would love to work with Skechers at some point. So put it out there. I'd love to crack the nut for them. Kind of like I think Kia did an entire brand turnaround. If you would have told me when I was in high school that I'd be begging my husband to get me a Kia Telluride, I would have said, get out of here. But now I love Kia. So maybe there's hope for Skechers to come around. But anyway, Skechers is not cool. But what they are is convenient. And they leverage that, leveraging establishing operations. So establishing operation is essentially a condition of deprivation or aversion that temporarily alters the value of a particular reinforcer. Now that's a mouthful. Let me explain. Okay, so there is essentially a condition at the airport of aversion. I hate taking off my freaking shoes, right? We all hate it. They know you hate it. And so they very smartly have put up this banner that promotes their hands-free step and go shoes while in a state of extreme aversion. So honestly, there is no way I would ever consider Skechers, except honestly, maybe I should buy them to wear to the airport. because there is an establishing operation that makes them actually relevant for me, because I would like to just slip in and go, just step and go, or whatever they say here. But I've actually noticed when you guys fly back to your respective airports, you'll see they've done a lot of airport takeovers, because God bless them, they're not cool, but they have probably found the one place that they are relevant, which is in an airport security line. And speaking of Kia, again, establishing operation. So a condition of deprivation or aversion that raises the value of a particular reinforcer. Another perfect example. This one is not based on an aversion, but this is a state of deprivation. Who is more deprived for something to do than someone that is waiting for their baggage? So this is me and my kids after getting off of a long flight back from New York. And would we ever really study the nooks and crannies of a car? No, but we're waiting at baggage claim with nothing else to do. And so we were in a state of deprivation. We were deprived of other competing stimuli. And so the car being there was actually a perfect opportunity for us to check it out, engage with it. So again, paying attention to these opportunities of deprivation or aversion and where your brand can show up. I was actually thinking about when you're traveling, you're typically deprived of sleep sometimes, especially business travel. Here, I slept really well last night, but I feel like when I travel for clients, I don't sleep well. I'm deprived of sleep. And I was thinking Ollie Vitamins should totally put a little vitamin sample with a hotel, get with a hotel partner and put a little vitamin sample on people's pillowcases. Because again, thinking about that as an establishing operation, someone who's deprived of sleep would probably be a really nice opportunity. Okay. Never let go. I love this one. Sunk cost fallacy. So this is a phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or a course of action because they have invested in it, even when it is clear that the abandonment would be beneficial. So this happens in real life outside of our marketing world, when your friend is married to a really shitty guy and they just feel like abandoning it is not going to be the right move, but it's it'd actually be more beneficial, it would, right? But it's sunk costs. We already have kids and or Valentine's Day is coming up, sunk costs, at this point, just get out, because it's actually more beneficial to get out, but we can't always see that. So how does that relate to marketing? I love this one because a lot of brands will do this, and Taco Bell did this with their Taco Pass. So you pay $10 for an unlimited Taco Pass, and what that means is you can get a taco a day for $5. So people have spent the $10, and now they're I want to make sure I maximize this investment. It's sunk cost. So they're going to buy a taco every day, and Taco Bell is just printing money off of these people. When in reality, the average times that someone visits a Mexican QSR is 1.3 times a month. So if they have gotten someone with this Taco Pass to even go 5 times, they've almost 2.5 times their frequency for their business or their category. But again, and it's sunk cost, because I might be sick of tacos. By 15 days in, I'm going to puke if I look at another ground beef burrito or taco. But the sunk cost is I spent $10 on this. I want to get the most out of it. Even if abandoning it would be better for my waistline and my wallet. And then tokenomics. So I love thinking about this again from just a loyalty program perspective. There's a lot of just interesting data on what drives reinforcements, incentives, and keeps people engaged with your brand, your product, your services. So token economics is a system of exchange in which individuals earn tokens or exchanges for social or tangible reinforcers. So essentially what that is, again, this is all very academic speak, so we all sound really smart if you ever mention this in a meeting. But what it ultimately means is just how we construct our incentive or loyalty programs to maximize engagement and retention and value from our customers and consumers. So the first is you always want to start with a low exchange ratio. Let someone come in contact with a reinforcer. So what Domino's literally, when I was at Pizza Hut and we were going to be doing this and they beat us to it, but they literally probably spoke to someone that gave them this hunch, is that you don't want people to have to work too hard to be able to get it for that first contact with the reinforcement. Let them taste the ice cream, fall in love with it, and then crave more, right? So I'm not trying to make you have to buy 100 pizzas for me before I give you an incentive. So they actually, you can see here, now earn more free Domino's every 2 orders. They wanted to just get people in, get them into the loyalty flywheel. So before it used to take you about 5 orders before you could redeem a free pizza, they wanted to change it to 2 because again, they knew the when people start to get in contact with that reinforcer, it feels really good. And then it creates that brand flywheel. Same with Starbucks, right? So they start out with rewards you can get with stars. I'm now, I think, at like 1,000 stars. I don't know why I hoard them. I really got to start cashing in on them. But they have, as you can see, for as little as 25 stars, you can already start to redeem some value and kick off that brand flywheel so that customers are engaging with you and feeling like you're building that reciprocity. Like they got something from you, they want to come back, and it creates that relationship. And then another really important one is to have backup reinforcers that are valuable to the unique customer. So that would be not what Del Taco did last year and what we are doing this year. Sorry, Eric. I don't know where you are. Where's my Del Taco fam? Oh, hi. I know that this wasn't your team, but not. But essentially, you're limiting yourself when you have a reinforcer that is super niche. So here we have these gift cards. When you got a gift card, you got a free sized combo, small sized combo meal. Then you got another 4 free small sized combo meals. You don't know that people all like combo meals. So you're essentially limiting yourself. You want to have a lot of variety so that people can redeem for what's important to them. And you're not going to exclude interest or engagement. So again, this year we're doing spend 20, get $5, and it just feels more evergreen and more broad. And then finally, this is actually my last one, but this is a perfect example of something I just did with Maggiano's. So when I first joined the brand and I went and dined in at the North Park restaurant, the server came to me. He put bread on my table. He's like, what can I get you to drink? So I'm like eating all the bread, I'm drinking. Then he comes back 5 minutes later and he's like, do you want appetizers? And I was like, pretty full. And this is a perfect example of deprivation and satiation. So I said, Maggiano's, we've got to change the steps of service. Like appetizers are valuable. They're check growers for us. They're great. They taste good. We want people to fall in love with our brand and have the full experience. So I said, I want to change the steps of service. And we've now changed them to where the server comes, he puts down the menu and says, hey, let me get your drinks and start thinking about what appetizer you want. So he's primed you. Then he comes back and says, have you decided on your appetizer? Then he puts the bread down. Because you're in a state of deprivation while you're thinking of the appetizer, so you're actually hungry, versus, again, coming after you filled up on bread, and then I'm like, I'm full, I'll save $15 on the appetizer, we're good, no appetizer, please. So this actually goes into effect with our operations team next week, so it'll be really exciting to see how we can leverage this as well. Just paying attention to the, again, whether deprivation, whether you're deprived or satiated, plays a role in how much, and if a reinforcer is valuable to you. So we want to make the appetizer reinforcer more valuable, so I don't want to fill people up on bread. And with that, I hope you are satiated with this content. And it's been really fun to talk about all these principles. I live and breathe this stuff. I've probably read every behavioral economics book there is out there. If you ever want any recommendations to just like delve into this further, it's super interesting, super applicable. And I hope you guys also see just super accessible for how you can apply to your brands and businesses. So thank you so much. Find me. I would love to chat more. And thank you for having me. And I will call Jeff back on stage to actually talk about AI now and its impact and future of search.
We have a couple minutes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so
Any questions for Talia? I feel like she's reading
me
me.
right now and going through behavioral psych about
There's
some
some
mics.
Hello, Talia. My name is Yuji Nagaki, and I had a question specifically around your Weight Watchers venture there. So I'm very passionate about health as well too, and right now I feel like there is a big war between like fast results versus taking your time and doing what you're supposed to do. So when it comes down to Weight Watchers, it's healthy way of eating, exercising versus something like Ozempic is what's going on right now. So how are you currently tackling when it comes down to what I call speed versus consequences, where people are like, as long as it's fast enough, I don't care about the consequences. So how do you balance that out?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm still definitely diving back into Weight Watchers. When I was there as the head of marketing 4 years ago, Ozempic wasn't around. And so we were very much about like sustainable long-term weight loss. And that's what we hung our hat on. Now that Ozempic has entered the chat, we do have to play a role in that conversation and offer that as a potential solution. I think what we're going to probably look to do, and again, I haven't like fully dived in yet, is look to really categorize people and help them identify what product they want to lean into and try to guide them to the longer term, more sustainable option at first. There is some science, though, that does show that certain people who have tried multiple weight loss programs and have not seen results might be a little bit predisposed to like needing an additional support, like pharmaceutical intervention. So I think it's going to probably be a matter of like how we identify those people. So some of the initial conversations I've had are we going to have a survey? How are we going to help people, identify where they should land and what support looks like for them? But yeah, I think it's definitely, it's just like such a new category for all of us, or, a new frontier for the weight loss category. So I'm going to be learning along with them for sure.
One more question? Not, we'll roll. One more? Do two. Speak quick.
First of all, this is great. Thank you for going through all this. Sometimes it seems like a company's unique value proposition relies on math, it seems like, and I try to have consumers do as little math as possible. So what has been your approach in kind of crossing that line? And I mean, like even the rewards point thing, it requires them to be like, how many points do I have kind of thing. So what's been your approach in trying to go from the emotional into that math a little bit, but still keeping it, still keeping them in emotion, if that makes sense?
So you're saying, how do I make, it's essentially just like thinking about being frictionless.
Yeah.
Sounds like, I mean, that's something I think about all the time. I think, whether it's like free, when we send out communications like free appetizer on Wednesday, like don't just send free appetizers, start to show them 4 examples of what appetizers look like. Ask your server to try this one. But I'm trying to think of how, so you're saying the emotion. I'm not sure how to answer the question on leveraging emotion versus math, but I think in general, from where I sit, I do think that we have, and this, I think you're talking more about consumers, but I think more about us as an industry, we have almost like over-rotated on the data and math side of things, that we don't apply this human overlay sometimes. And it's like, we're going down this rabbit hole of data. And it's like, if you just applied some like common sense human logic, which like we are all still very valuable for, we might have ended up in a different direction. And so I think a lot of this stuff, like I hope a lot of the stuff you saw is actually pretty intuitive. Now you just have the language to like reference it and systemize and scale it. But a lot of this is like pretty intuitive. And so I think just like my thought is, I always tell teams, like, put yourself in the customer seat. Don't use language that's all like garbly and like assuming that they know all this stuff. Like assume the customer knows nothing. They're not in our boardrooms with us. They have none of this background, and just keep things really simple and straightforward. But I hope that helps.
Thank you. Can everyone give me a hand for Italia? Thank you. All right, we're going to roll into AI. And by the way, outside the waves is not AI. I was watching a masterclass on AI last week, and he actually changed the entire backdrop. It actually looked like waves. It looked pretty real like this, but it wasn't. So can I have the panelists come up for the AI chats? So we're gonna just go through really the AI. What does AI mean? The impact of AI in search, as well. So if we can just go down the line, maybe from left to right, everyone can introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Baccaro. I am the Director of Performance Marketing with Windsor Fashions. We are a women's fashion and apparel brand with 350 US retail locations, servicing all women's apparel from age 13 through your mid 30s for everyday apparel and then special occasion dresses.
Hi everyone. Whoa, that was loud. Hi everyone. My name is Tufik Eid. I am the director of paid search at Decoded Advertising, overseeing the Estee Lauder company brands. I oversee the entire Luxe department under Estee Lauder, so ranging from Jo Malone London, Clinique, Tom Ford Beauty, Balmain Beauty. The list goes on. It has its perks and it has its challenges. Obviously, working in the cosmetics and beauty world, competing with many competitors across online digital, and then also in brick and mortar stores, obviously. But within search, it's been quite the challenge. But I'll keep it until we get into that discussion.
Sounds good. So hi everyone, my name is Brooke Abbott. I am currently a paid search director at my agency, BB Clark and Myler. We're a small digital agency. We work across several industries, but I'm really excited to talk a little bit more.
Hello everyone, my name is Trevon Okogu. Most people know me as Trey. Most recently at MRM McCann as the SVP Global Head of Search. I've also spent time at different engine sides, so Microsoft, Apple, launched product search ads at Apple. So just kind of run the gamut across the search marketplace, I guess. But AI is one of the new shiny toys that we have to play with in search. So I'm excited to see where it takes us in the future.
Hi everyone. Yeah. My name is Dylan St. Clair. I'm the VP of SCM at Angie. Angie is the nation's largest home services marketplace, formerly Angie's List, Advisor, and Handy coming together. I think AI is going to have a massive impact since home services is very hard in the sense of you don't know what goes on in your house. And I feel as though there's going to be a lot of, impacts that's going to really benefit at least some of our industry, but also some things that I think we need to watch out for as well. But happy to be here.
Awesome. So little icebreaker as well. So we gotta have some fun, right? So if somebody was searching your name, what would the first auto suggest be?
Probably something to do with hiking in national parks. I'm a big nature photographer and I love hiking.
It would probably be, does Tufik Eid use Estee Lauder products to look young? No, just kidding. It would probably be, when is Tufik Eid gonna grow up?
Well, I think my name is pretty common, but I'd love for it to show up with some of my background. I used to ice skate, so it would be nice if it was a flattering picture of me with a little description of what I used to do.
I guess if you couldn't tell, I have a pretty unique name. So when you search my name, you'll probably most likely see some of my karate achievements. I took a traditional martial art for like 20 years. I used to compete in tournaments a lot. So I'll probably come up in the standings for those.
I would just hope that nothing comes up about me when I search. I just want to be I don't want to be found. I don't want people to show up on my door. And so it's kind of, the antithesis. I would just be like, you search Dylan St. Clair and maybe you find my LinkedIn and that's it. Probably not even that, but I'll go the opposite. I don't want to be found.
Fair enough. So you learn a lot on icebreakers. And I have a new bodyguard here with Trey for the next 4 days. So let's dive in. So how is AI changing the way that people search and discover ads?
I would say it's become much more visual and long tail. We're getting a lot more information a lot quicker. So it's how are we keeping our attention? What are we actually looking for? So I think ultimately the intent in paid search is transforming and changing as a result of the information we're getting with AI.
I would add to that and just say we're seeing a lot more zero-click results. So users not even having to come to your websites to get the information that they need. But there's also a huge problem with a lot of distrust from consumers. There's a lot of misinformation or things that aren't completely fact-checked. And a lot of people don't necessarily want to look at the AI results for that reason.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback off the zero clicks that you're saying, I think the SERP as a whole is being reshaped. So a lot of the times you'll get essentially now an AI result that's more similar to organic, that's essentially pushing down the SERP for ads. So I think that's contributing to where I'm sure all of us in this room have seen skyrocketing CPCs from Google because people are fighting over that more limited ad space that you have because of the AI results that we're seeing across the board.
I also just need to work out where this needs to be. I think it's also, you're getting a lot of information in the eye and it's not exactly vetted too. I mean, we've all seen the ones where it says a pregnant person can smoke 2 cigarettes a day, when clearly that's not the case. And so I think it's a combination of, you know, as Trey was saying, like pushing down their search results. I think Google's doing a ton of testing in regards to like ad depth and all that, that's changing all these things. I think it's going to be interesting, you know, now Google is allowing ads within the AI space. Like, how much does that just get manipulated in the AI summaries and whatnot? Because, again, it's just not that trustworthy when, you know, we've searched there. And again, they're refining and improving it, but I think the holes there just, you know, expose a lot of distrust.
Yeah, and then just to add on to that, I think obviously with AI, just having that automation process where with a click of a button, we're able to develop multiple thousands and thousands of ads at a single process. With that comes, obviously that's a good thing, but also with that comes, how are we being authentic to consumers as a brand? How are we reaching them at the right moment, in the right time, with the right messaging? And then obviously, there's the whole distrust issue that's, you know, taking place in, are we being authentic with the consumer? Are we not being authentic? How are we not standing out, and not as organic search, so to say, but in the sense of like, hey, we're here to promote the brand from a top level perspective.
So talking about just you know real AI and practicality, how it works in each of our businesses. Like we've had AI in place for over 15 years, and the different aspects of it. But would love maybe Carolina, we can just go down the line and give some specific examples of how are we using AI today in our everyday businesses.
As much as humanly possible. We are leveraging AI in a ton of our SEO optimizations. Almost every piece of content on our website is originally being generated by AI at this point and then edited by humans. Almost all of our test variation within advertising is also being touched upon by AI. And then there's the internal processes that we're trying to use AI to create efficiencies, just to help us produce more faster.
Yep. And then from my perspective, I haven't tested any AI specifically with the brands that I work on, just for legal reasons. However, we started pitching to clients based on how we could optimize our PMAX campaigns through AI, where we're able to develop video assets, different types of image assets through AI automatically for the brand without having to wait for clients to provide us with certain asset sizes, certain assets that pertain to a certain targeted segment audience. But rather just relying on the fact that AI is able to develop that based on behavioral learnings within the account and serving it to the right consumer at the right time.
Yeah, and so kind of to my first point, we kind of recognize that imagery, visuals are becoming much more important in not only search, but everywhere. So our agency has worked really hard to kind of curate a tool that works for like pre-launch imagery testing. So it uses a combination of visual computer generated insights on how does the AI respond to the content, the font, the look, because some of our clients don't have a lot of money to put towards a single creative and they need to learn quickly. So this kind of allows us to get everything like tested beforehand and putting it into market in an efficient way, keeping those learnings and moving forward on that. But again, efficiencies on the day to day, that's always a big place. But I think from our standpoint, from what I use on a daily basis, it helps me a lot with kind of curating this mindset.
With my teams, the biggest thing that we've really been using AI for is for scale, right? So like being able to use various GPTs to, build out example campaigns, and then using the human element to add on to that, right? Whether it be keyword research, long tail keyword research, different headlines, which also feeds into different testing that you want to do. I think AI, the way that I've really looked at it, is just another tool within the toolbox to help us achieve our ultimate goal of, testing and growing the programs efficiently.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Trey just said there in the sense of just, improving ad copy, just trying to improve a lot of the day-to-day things. I think on our side, as I mentioned before, like owning a home is kind of daunting. And when something goes wrong, you don't know a lot. Trying to use AI to understand that when you have something wrong with your roof, for example, to say, this person's in Chicago. Chicago has, 80% flat roofs within this zip code. Therefore, we can get the right pro to do that kind of thing. And I think that, when I've had an HVAC guy come to my house that asked where the condenser was, and I showed him the HVAC system. He's like, that's not the condenser. And I'm like, well, if I knew where it was, you wouldn't be here. And so, like, how do we do some of those things to make it easier? How do we make sure that we're getting people in touch with the right thing? Because a lot of it doesn't make sense. Like, when your sprinklers break, you need a plumber. You don't need a lawn service, but people would go through the lawn service path to do that. And I think it's correcting a lot of those easy mistakes, but in a sense, it's really hard to go through on a one-by-one basis and do that. I think AI that's where we're focusing it on. I think some of the marketing aspects will come later, but we feel as though getting the customer, to get the job done well is the most important thing in our mind.
And I would just kind of add on to that. I think we've also seen that it's super helpful in like fleshing out the understanding of our customers, because sometimes we can only think so much. And so putting some ideas through an AI, a chat GPT, can kind of surface something different, and it can kind of break the bias that you might already hold, and just kind of put out something different. And you as the human can say, no, that's wrong, but it opens the door to different thoughts.
So there's a lot of money being thrown around with AI, right? As far as talent, as far as product development. There's a company that's not in this room that just brought on board and it spent over $2.5 billion for a single employee. Does anyone in this room have a $2 billion employee at their company? No? Billion? No? Okay. Right. So again, it's ridiculous money, but at the end of the day, again, it's how do we again use talent that we have to really enhance it, right, or bring new talent on as well. But also, it really talks about really ethics, right, and data integrity with AI and the presentation layer of that. So I'd love to understand too the biggest challenges that people are facing in terms of data as well as ethics with AI.
You can start on the ethics portion of that. I feel like for us, we not only have HR policies in place, we have IT policies in place. There are rules about what our inputs are allowed to be for us to actually generate the correct outputs for our content on site. Because as a brand, we can't infringe on content that's been written by another brand, on content that's been written by another writer. We're producing not only product descriptions, but blog articles and social media content through these platforms. And so there are a lot of different ethical elements for that kind of legal ramifications that are the backlash of utilizing those types of tools.
Yep. I know there's many different ethical issues. I'm pretty sure everybody could agree. But for me, I think the main two is obviously one, privacy concerns. Being the fact that, AI is generating copy based on your behavior. It's pretty scary because you're being monitored at all times, and just not knowing that, whatever you do on the internet is actually being, sold to companies to develop those AI content. So that's obviously one. But number two is just, the copy one, not being so authentic to the brand, but rather being in some cases biased or in the sense of discrimination. Um, Obviously, I'm an Arab American, so my people, we love to bargain for sales. So just imagine seeing an ad about like the cheapest deal you could get. Just click here. You're not going to find a better deal than this. But just having that capability where it's not in the sense of just being so generic, but more authentic to the brand, and then at the same time not being biased, not being discriminatory, in the sense of where the consumer is shopping in the industry specifically, and for whatever product, for whatever service.
Yeah. So I feel, there's like a social component that I care deeply about, just the cost of using AI. I think about that a lot, how it can, drain so much energy, so many resources, it costs a lot of money. But, in terms of my job, I think what I'm seeing is it just requires a lot more transparency and thought. And so there are the benefits of scale, but it is coming down to that like human perspective and what are those safeguards. And for us, being a small agency, we do have the ability to kind of lay the ground rules with our clients, like what is our optimization and our flow utilizing those tools. But I think it's really just, it's a function of how do you communicate and how do you utilize it in a way that's, ensuring the safety, but, on the terms of your brand.
And I think just to follow up on what everyone else is saying in terms of the lack of transparency, I think that then goes into how then we're placed into like a feedback loop, right? So like we're in a feedback loop that we're not even necessarily aware of, and how dangerous that can become, right? So the same way, you were just mentioning about like being Arab American and getting like all the, this is the cheapest deal that you can get. It's like, why is every time I search something, I'm getting like this is the cheapest you can get messaging, So just the lack of transparency around how we're coming up with the content that we're getting fed, I think that's something to be aware of as we move forward.
Maybe just to hop in, I think your point on the, like what is the content that AI is surfacing? I still think back to maybe in like the beginning stages of when it was like not the biggest thing to talk about, was the example of someone searching for, a doctor, like what are doctors near me, or it was some type of tool, and it was talking about only male doctors. It didn't consider that there are female doctors. So it's all about, I think, the input and the output, and what is being input does take a lot of smart, thoughtful, like to feed the machine learning algorithm itself.
Yeah, I think I've read a book, I'm reading a book called The Big Nine. It's about the big 9 companies and their AI influences in tech. 6 American, 3 Chinese. The American ones, Facebook, Apple, Google, blah, blah, blah. The Chinese ones, Baidu, Tencent, and Alibaba. American AI is very driven towards solving business problems. And it's inherently driven by the developers and the programmers and the managers that drive it. American AI is inherently kind of racist. Chinese AI is there to benefit society in the sense that they're building things so you can find your train easier. You're building things so you can like rank people and all that. I'm not saying it's good or bad. And I think that, as Brooke was saying, it's all about the input. It's all about the information you give it. It's also about how you build it. And I think that's where it's going to come down to is, AI is being driven by American companies and Chinese companies. And I think it's going to be interesting how we've we being American, have driven it for like business purposes. And the way we talk about it now is all about business, all about efficiencies. Like Brooke was the only one to bring up about the immense energy drain it contains too. And so I think we're at this point where what is the future of AI? And we're already talking about it in search, but if you think about it like, in a more macro aspect, it kind of becomes, I don't want to say daunting, but it's interesting how it's driven from where it started from.
So thinking of the future then, to play off that as well, Dylan. So, and the question for all the panelists, 5 years from now, again, what are the biggest trends you see to shape the future of search? Not necessarily just with using AI, but future of search.
I was going to say, I think we've obviously seen with AI, it is primarily in the queries that are coming through. There's a lot with video, there's a lot with photo, and being able to generate assets in order to run searches, I think is going to be a very interesting way of doing things, especially with connected technology and wearables, and being able to have an input that you're looking at and then say, oh, but make that a red top, or change that top so that it has stripes. I want thicker stripes, not thin stripes. And being able to edit some visual aspect that can then run the search using that AI generated imagery could become completely seamless in our experiences.
Yep. To add to your point to that, I was reading something the other day. It was mainly talking about how do we utilize AI across different seasons, different areas across the country. Meaning, how do we sell the same perfume bottle, but maybe the background is like, a snow winter wonderland to someone living in Antarctica, but then for someone living in Florida, it's like the background is like a nice beach with some sun. So it was pretty cool just to see that in the aspect of like, okay, search is now becoming more visually appealing. It's almost playing the role of social. So that's definitely one area within the next 5 years that I see is going to leave a really strong impact, specifically within search, but definitely also the visual search aspect of it. So being able to just open up your phone and not want to talk to the person next to you, but love their shoes, and you're just like, oh my God, let me see where they got their shoes from.
I have done
that. Yeah, it's cool. I like it. Sometimes you just don't want to have that conversation with someone, but having visual search growing in the space of that field, I think is going to be within the next 5 years the main focal point for most brands, at least out there.
Yeah, I would be pretty interested to see how the SERP itself transforms, and what I'm kind of thinking is going to occur is the SERP is going to be customizable. You're not going to get one single outline. You're going to be able to kind of curate and develop your own preference of what content is surfaced, what type of content is surfaced, because I feel like it's already being tested out with AI. You're being served, maybe a maps result, a business result, or you're getting the description. And so I think that's going to become more personalized to really kind of find those answers, and probably skew more towards the paid ads that are there, because right now it's a ton of organic. It's a ton of, they're not getting money as often as they would because they're risking the AI. So I think it's going to probably tee up the idea of customization using AI in your search experience.
Yeah, I think we're going to go to a more multimodal search environment. So, searching across, you can search in your car now, you can search with appliances, different wearables, right? So that takes it almost a different level from just across different channels. So then taking all those different inputs and how that affects personalization going into the future, I think that's going to be something that we see happen over the next 5 or so years. That's going to fundamentally change how we interact with ads.
Yeah, and I think that as it starts to know more about us, I think it's going to be harder to acquire new customers, because it's going to understand my profile, understand where I shop, understand, that I shop at Todd Snyder and J. Crew exclusively. And so it's, when new people are trying to attract me, I think it's going to be harder, because Google's going to know, this guy literally only wears 2 brands. So what is the point of even trying to market to him? I think it's just going to come much more kind of personalized. I could kind of think about the Minority Report, where Tom Cruise walks into a Gap and it was he's wearing someone else's eyes, so he isn't. They say he's Japanese, and it's oh, you just bought 3 V-neck tops. Would you like this to go with it? I don't want it to get that far, but I feel like search is going to get to that aspect where it just knows so much about you. It's going to be hard to break you out from your walls.
And to follow up that, I think we're kind of getting there now, right? Where, if for me, I wear a ton of Nikes, right? Would it make sense to ever show me an Adidas ad? And it might, right? Because
it's going to be hard to push you over. That's the thing. And so how much is it going to cost to get to that point when, Google knows, okay, Nike, he know we're 99% chance he's going to buy this. Everything else just becomes such a bigger risk. And I think I mean, it's kind of bad in that aspect because like I think variety is good and I like expanding and all that, even though I go back to what's known, and it worries me that I'm just gonna, only see Todd Snyder ads from now on.
I think it's again the story of data in, data out. Essentially, that feedback loop. Whatever you're searching, whatever you're actually being put in front of you, you're going to kind of end up in this circle. And I think again, all of AI is feeding off of information that has been and will be. And so the language models that are used are probably going to have to change, and our inputs are probably going to be the ones to change it. But again, I think that's where the strategy is going to evolve, is how do we kind of break the mold? How do we break the cycle so that we're not always getting that one stop?
Awesome. So our intent, we're gonna close it there, just in the sake of time. But our intent is really to kind of just seed plant these conversations from stage, so that we can talk and grab people on the panel over the next few days, ask questions as well. We can be here for a week and just talk about this topic, honestly. So thank you everybody for your input as well. So appreciate it. Our next group, Matthew and team, will come up and talk about client retention, growth, and onboarding. Matthew. What are we doing? Coffee break, really? I believe. Nick, are we taking a few minutes for a break, or? Oh, snacks in the corner, kosher snacks as well. Then sign up for the roundtables. Yeah, a few minute coffee break actually before we dive in.
Who would like to go first?
I can start. So Will Ferguson, I am at Dentsu. I'm the Chief Growth Officer of TAG, our most recently acquired agency. So TAG is a content agency, kind of split into two business, channel activation, which is like traditional sourcing, but then also production at scale. And I oversee our business development, our solutions, and then also our client engagement, which is how do we synergize with Dentsu Media, Dentsu Creative, and our CXM counterparts to try to service our clients, both existing and future.
Great, thanks, Will.
Hi, I'm Tara. I oversee paid media acquisition, and that's for Dermstore. So it's a beauty and professional skincare retailer. And I oversee all the paid media channels, so that could be search, social, display, out of home, etc.
Hi, Justin McGinnis, VP of Performance Marketing at Syneos Health. At Syneos, we work with big pharma to take brands and molecules and develop them through clinical trials all the way to market execution. And before you ask, no, I do not set the drug prices, so I don't want to talk about that.
Thanks, guys. All right, to get things started, I'd like to hear from each of you about a personal experience. What is the most memorable thing a company has done to make you feel truly valued as a customer?
I actually think it's on the opposite side. It's when they screw up, when they want to really make an impact. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me give you a discount. Let me give you a rebate, all the things. I think it's less common that they want to reward you to stay a partner. So I think it's really interesting dynamic to understand, okay, you want me to keep coming back. So I'll go ahead and put the flowers in the cart for Mother's Day, and then I'll come back in 3 days and get the free delivery. So I'm all about that life. But I think it's interesting.
Yeah, for me, I was going to say, and this is from a couple of years ago, had subscribed to, a food delivery service with Chewy.com, the pet care company. And when my family had lost our dog, they had sent over flowers and a card, instead of it just being like, well, we lost a subscriber. They sent over, so I thought that was really thoughtful.
Yeah, they're really good at that. And if they mess up an order, your dog doesn't like the food, they say donate it, give it to someone else. They've done a great job. I think instead of like maybe a big impactful thing, it's that sustained relationship, which I think we'll talk a little bit about, like knowing your customer. USAA, I think, is a bank that has done a great job of knowing their target audience, expanding their potential audience set outside of just veterans into families of veterans. And every customer touch point is very intentional. They know how long you served. They know what your rank was. They know if you're a family member. And it's just that consistent understanding of like, okay, these people are building a personal relationship with me. I think that's, maybe less of the big and flashy, impactful moment, but it's one of those over time you start to feel an emotional reaction and start, building a relationship with a bank, which is a hard thing sometimes to do.
Great. All right. What role does understanding customer identity play in building lasting relationships? Will, you want to take this one?
Yeah. And so I led our identity platform for a couple of years at Dentsu. And so this is, the central question every day of like, how do we use this to better our relationships? And it's about anticipating that next customer move, right? We want to be as intelligent as possible and as thoughtful in where we're investing our clients' dollars, whether it's with media or CX or creative. And like trying to build a persona. And I know, some of us have harder times than others using data and identity. And particularly when you're thinking globally, right? Like there's just different regulations in different markets, different data availability. And so thinking about, leveraging IDs where you can, like in the US, leveraging panels where you can, and just trying to build a complete picture. So you're staying a step ahead and leading that customer to your next touch point, your next sale, your loyalty and retention. Again, just trying to get it down to that ID level as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's good, Will. And what do you think about like the cookieless future, if that ever does happen, or what is happening with that? How does that play a role, do you think, kind of in that same realm?
Yeah, I mean, the delay is, I think, a welcome one. It's a bit of a painful one. Like, it's the cookieless future. I'd love to be the cookieless present so we can stop talking about it and just get on with our lives. But I think what's been good about it is it's forced the conversation. I think you have a bit of a longer time maybe for less mature brands and agencies to kind of get up to speed and figure out, am I building my own ID set? Am I building my own spine? Am I renting it out? I'm going to white label someone else. Do I rely on my agency to sort it out? It's just giving, I think, more time for brands to come to maturity and also make responsible decisions, making sure it's not knee-jerk reaction to try to keep up with the market. You're putting the right legal and bias protections in place, I think, is a theme we'll probably keep hearing about today. So my short answer is I'd love the future to become the present so we can just get on with it.
Justin, do you have?
No, I think just kind of going along with what Will said. I mean, the identity is unique because working in pharma, we can't do one-to-one patient. But how we do it is we take a lot of, frankly, somewhat demographics and somewhat a bit racist to a certain degree, say, okay, this population reads these books or looks at these magazines or watches these TV shows, and we have to think like that. So it's really unique when you're thinking of a one-to-one from a pharma perspective and thinking about, gosh, I really have to think of putting people in a box and targeting them in again, like I said, somewhat of a racist way is unique and challenging from a pharma perspective.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm coming from the brand side here, but you obviously can't build a relationship with a customer if you don't understand them, right? And that's beyond demographic, psychographic data. But I think it ultimately comes down to how you communicate with them. So it's primarily how, right? Like, what is the message or content that you are saying, whether it's written text, whether it's voiceover, video, and where, right? Where are your customers, whether they're searching or researching, on a product or service, or engaging, consuming content, like socializing with their family and friends. Like, that's, I think, the core of it. And then I think from there, it's going to tie into your finances as well, like where you're going to be allocating most of your budget, right? Where are you finding that efficiencies with reaching these customers?
The only thing I'd add too is like, I think we get hyper focused on identity for the outbound piece of like, how are we targeting and messaging? It's the measurement piece I think often gets overlooked is you need to also be capturing performance data at that same granularity because otherwise you're not learning. Like, you cannot improve your media plans and your strategies, and you cannot have any sort of meaningful progress as a brand unless you're also measuring and optimizing in that way. And so I think it's an important note to like not lose sight of the measurement piece as well.
How do you balance the needs of existing clients with the strategies for attracting new ones? Tara, you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to think of this as our existing customers versus new ones, right? And so for me, that really boils down to retention and LTV. And so you kind of, I think the keyword there is balance also, because you can't look at, okay, where do I need my new customer acquisition goals to be at to get into growth without looking at the health of your existing database and current existing customers, and looking at what are the right KPIs that I should be looking at to understand that, right? So that could be active customers, lapsing customers, like dormant. What does dormant mean to you, right? Like, how do you define that? And then from there, figure out, okay, where do I need to get to go to drive new customer acquisition? Like, or do I need to focus on my loyalty? And so it really is that balancing act.
Yeah, again, on more specific pharma side, the existing customers is interesting. They want two things. They want a lower margin, so paying you less. Of course, we all know that burn. And number two, they want something new. So they don't want to just hear the same old, oh, here's your social platforms, here's Google and Bing. Maybe you integrate like an AdMedia, wink, wink, right? You got to bring those new things to market to show them that it's not this just baked plan that you do every year with just different numbers and different impressions and click values. It has to be new, it has to be innovative, and there's a lot of partners out there that are developing a lot of new technologies that have to be integrated as well. So as the market evolves, you have to evolve with it to find the right products and services that can help elevate those brands in different ways.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's like culturally and operationally. So one of the things, we're talking a bit earlier, I have like 10 growth pillars that anyone on a growth team, I think, needs to embody. And it's about democratizing that in the org. Everyone is a growth officer at an agency. Everyone is responsible for the financial success of our clients and our business. And so everyone's got to have that mindset. And one of the pillars is be customer zero. You have to know your client or prospect. You have to know their business beyond the brief, and you have to know their category. You should be delivering solutions that they have not asked for. And like, if you get that mindset into your client services team and your day-to-day delivery teams, it absolutely changes the relationship that you can build and the speed that your business will grow at. It staves off things like reviews, and it again solidifies the base, which is the foundation of growth. Then the operational bit is a lot of the good solutions come to bear in pitches. Everyone is a dreamer in a pitch room. Anything is possible. Everything's been thrown out. They want to see best ideas on the table. And so we've got the solutions arm under us for that reason. But then after a pitch, that's got to be delivered to your day-to-day teams. They have to be able to bring those solutions to your existing clients. We see it all the time in our world. The client says, this is great in your retention pitch. Why did I not see it 4 years ago when I brought you my business, right? So just making sure that you've got your growth in your client teams really well aligned so that you're, again, elevating all of your base at the same time that you're going out and hopefully acquiring and growing, your business.
All right, last question. What are some sustainable growth strategies that have proven effective for onboarding new clients? Justin?
Sustainable, I think, is kind of a curse word in our media, realm of thinking. But I will say that I think being able to maintain growth is understanding where they're in the funnel. Launch brands, it's the big awareness play. Then year two is the consideration or the intent. You start working your way kind of down that sales funnel as a brand evolves, or as a brand goes LOE or changes products or mindsets. So when we think about sustainability, I think we have to think about how fast or slow are they moving through that funnel? And you have to keep pace with that brand recognition to not try to sell them the next stage of the funnel if they haven't evolved to that level yet.
Yeah, so I think for me, coming from Dermstore, it's when I think of partners, it's onboarding a new partner. That could mean a vendor or a brand that's going to be part of our our retail network, or a creative agency, and I think the core thing that we focus on is really looking at our joined performance goals, and I think a lot of the data sharing is also really important, and I think that really ties down to accountability. So it's having that partner be accountable for your goals as well, and by sharing how you're looking at performance overall, not just for, let's just say, that particular channel that they're contributing to, it just cultivates like a partnership. And I think that's what helps you have that, be a long-term strategy. And I think it also can change, and it allows for that flexibility and changing depending on how performance is going, and maybe you need to reprioritize something. So
yeah, onboarding can always be a struggle, right? Like it's a stressful period, I think, for particularly the advertiser who's now bought into a new product. There's a vested interest in the agency being successful, but scrutiny is high. And so I think, again, going back to that marriage of growth and clients, having the client teams involved early on in the pitch, it helps prevent maybe selling too many dreams and not enough practices. And at the same time, keeping growth involved beyond the inking of the contract, right? Growth should be involved all the way through the onboarding of a client. And so I think the way that we've structured the organization to try to deliver on the promises that we've made in the pitch room is really useful. And then going back to one of the other 10 pillars is we will never be outloved, right? You can lose on pricing, you can lose on capes. We will never lose on being loved by clients. They will feel the love of the business. And if you've established that early on in the pitch room and you're carrying through onboarding, it's a lot easier to kind of come to the table and say, hey, we recognize there's a bumpy road ahead here. We're going to do our best to over-service and over-deliver. And you have a much more willing audience, right, to accept the pitfalls that just come naturally when you're changing technology, changing systems, changing people, changing operations.
Thanks, guys. Anything else you want to add before we... No? Any questions? Any questions in the group?
We have about 5 minutes for questions, so if anybody has a question, please raise your hand and I'll come over. Jeff.
It's a sickness. I have to ask questions. Sorry. Really, challenge in the industry right now is really kind of in-housing, right, with different services, with brands and agency teams, and how that looks today and kind of where it's moving to. So would love to just kind of understand your guys' perspective of that movement.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. One of the analogies that I like to think about is my idea of a puzzle, kind of what you were just saying, Jeff, all those different pieces of the puzzle. If I was to ask you, what's the most important piece to a puzzle? Some of you are going to say the first piece, the last piece, the corner piece, the edge piece. You know, everybody's thinking that same thing. But we have to look at it as the most important piece to a puzzle is the picture on the box. That's where we need to start. Then we can figure everything else out around that to understand what the end goal is, and let's work backward to figure out where the pieces need to go from there.
I'm stealing that. That's great. With pride. I think the in-housing challenge is one we have heard for quite some time, and I think we will continue to. It's preparing our business to service clients the way they need, right? So we need to have a team that is available to help clients in-house. It is a challenging task. We should also be ready to take business back from other agencies and from clients when they have struggled with in-housing. It's going to be a fluid process. I think it can be very successful when done right. It can be very burdensome on a business when you take on all of those operations and structure challenges that come with running performance teams at scale. And so I think just for us as an agency, it's, again, being agile, being flexible, receiving feedback with grace, but then knowing when to push on our clients and say, is this the best way to carry your business forward? Again, deliver beyond the brief.
Yeah, I think, well, so for Dermstore, I do run our team in-house. We also work with agency partners as well, but more so on the creative side. I think it still boils down to communication, right? Whether it's someone on your team versus, okay, you're hiring an agency to, help with a particular campaign that you have. As long as everyone is clear, right, on what your shared goals are, and where, there are challenges that you're experiencing, if it's on, let's just say, the brand side, making that clear so that everybody's aware, everyone's on the same page, right? And then that you can move forward together.
Okay, we have time for one more.
I think that was very interesting. Actually, I'm the CMO for the Henkel company for consumer goods, and I think just in what you said regarding the pharma and what the customers are looking for was quite interesting. You mentioned about the low cost or the innovative stuff. Well, how do you balance the return on investment? Because low cost means at the end, I want to put the minimum money to get the best out of it, the best dollars out of it. And that is always a challenge when you are doing the upper funnel initiatives because they don't pay off. And I always have a conflict with my CFO. at the end. So what is the right way that is navigating towards basically the customers or putting the business plan behind that?
It's a good question. I think within pharma media in particular, if I said, nothing is everything, you guys know that Sky Rizzy. Who's seen that commercial or seen it on social? Seriously, who's seen it? Yeah, exactly. So those earworms work. Those are important. That's awareness. So now we have to think about the cost analysis of that. How many people do they need to know the brand? How many people do they know that may be disease indicated or a family member or so on and so forth? It's building the community within the awareness stage. A lot of the same things that Will said is if you start with awareness, it's not just the funnel. It's the community of that funnel and the expansion of that funnel that then trickles down into the other stages eventually. Now, the maturation of that can be extremely different case to case, brand to brand. And that's where a lot of the analytics and reporting has to come down to where you're trying to find that right space, right time situation.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Next, we're going to invite Emma and her team up to discuss retail.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Emma. I head up the account management team at AdMedia, and I'm thrilled to be here to join this discussion on all things retail. This topic is super exciting as we're heading into Q4, buckling up for that, and observing so much growth across the vertical. It's definitely an area where we shine and love to collaborate with our partners. So you hear their perspectives and insights. Can we start with some introductions, starting with Anthony?
Hi, I'm Anthony Sell. I'm the SVP of Search at Starcom, part of Publicis. We work on brands such as Lego, McDonald's, Anheuser-Busch, and plenty of other brands, and excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mitch Cross. I'm on the search team at Macy's. I specifically lead search for a number of lines of business across shoes. I'm sorry, not shoes anymore. Handbags, jewelry, watches, intimates, and also Macy's Marketplace, which is a relatively new initiative. I'm happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Brett Gieser. I'm the head of paid search and e-commerce at Cross Media. In a past life, I was on the agency side for a big box retailer and on the brand side for a big box retailer. So it's nice to meet you all.
I'm Jennifer Peters. I'm the director of D2C, MarTech, and digital compliance at Ollie. And if you don't know Ollie, we are a gummy vitamin company. We're a Unilever brand. If you've ever walked into Target and turned right, you have seen our product. They come in square bottles.
Great. Let's dive into it with an icebreaker question. What is the most effective retailer e-commerce campaign you've seen recently, and why did it stand out to you? Start with Anthony.
Yeah, I can start. I feel that Nike has been a brand that does really good with branding, but yet they're not really known for their e-commerce. And they've really had a transformation in the last few years by launching their new app, Nike Plus, and sneaker app, and they've really been able to integrate that with their brick and mortar store. So really tying their branding initiatives with their brick and mortar experience.
I think what stands out to me the most is Blue Apron. I'm pretty sure everyone is familiar with what they are. The reason I was really impressed with them is, so we always talk about knowing our consumer, knowing everything about them and getting in their heads. But there's a lot less talk about knowing exactly what we're selling. And I think that's where Blue Apron really succeeded. So you think what they're selling is food or an experience. Basically, they're sending you ingredients and you're cooking it. What they're really doing, and this is what's so brilliant, is they're selling a feeling. And what I mean by that is if you look at how they marketed themselves, they're using a lot of user-generated content and also their own corporate generated content to highlight the actual people, their actual customers, and people that are cooking, because it makes their customers into a hero, in the sense that all the content is about, hey, this is what I did. I cooked this meal for my family. I cooked this meal for an event and things like that. And what it does is it's allowing people to feel good about themselves. And that's actually truly what they're selling. So that's what really impressed me.
Most recently, I've been noticing and been very impressed with Target Circle Week advertising program. It's occurring this week, but the past week, 2 weeks, they've been really stressing, highlighting the importance of, purchasing online, in store, and to take advantage of these opportunities only available during the Circle Week. And it's top of my mind as I'm in e-commerce, but again, for the masses, everyone utilizing either Rondo Media Studio or just going into Target has been really, has caught my attention, and I've been very impressed with the program.
I think my favorite ad campaign I've seen this year is Elf Beauty, coming off of 2 amazing years of Super Bowl ads with Jennifer Coolidge and with the cast of Suits. It's had a huge reemergence. Their Too Many Dicks in the Boardroom campaign this year, I think, has been incredible. And really, they're using their voice to highlight a real issue. And Billie Jean King is involved, and they're really kind of showing everyone that U.S. corporate boards are only 20% women. And I was lucky enough at Social Media Week, they had kind of their whole installation in the Oculus in New York City, and it really was truly amazing. It was such a cool message, such a cool experience to kind of walk through this almost tunnel of this message. It was great.
Thank you. How can brick and mortar stores stay competitive in an increasingly digital retail environment? And are there any strategies that you've seen for integrating e-commerce with physical locations?
Yeah, I can start. I think that what brick and mortar stores really could differentiate is the experience, right? So people have to go and they want to touch and feel product. I remember when brands like Casper launched, I was like, nobody's going to buy a mattress and just get shipped to their house. And then yet, a lot of people have, brought on that idea of, working with D2C, but they also started launching their own brick and mortar stores afterwards, right? Because you want to be able to tie that experience of what you deliver on from a digital aspect to, be able to engage your community and have the product engagement as well.
So actually, I'm going to agree with Anthony. I'm just going to add some things. So in addition to the experience of seeing something, touching something, trying something out, I know at Macy's we also sell furniture, we sell mattresses, and it always helps that we even have some brick and mortar, just furniture only stores, and it always helps for people to go there, look at things in person, try things in person. But also, brick and mortar, if you integrate that with digital, it also helps digital in the sense that people look for easy ways to return. One thing that we know that Amazon has done is they partnered with Kohl's as a method of returning something in person. They own Whole Foods, so that's another venue. At Macy's, what we do is we allow people, when you buy something online, you can return it in the store. What that also does is increase store traffic as well. The other thing that brick and mortar is good at is, just for lack of a better term, being a fulfillment center. So for instance, buying online and picking up in store, one of the things that we leverage are LIAs, local inventory ads, which allows people, again, to buy online in a shopping type of ad unit and go to the store and pick it up. And that's something that will help brick and mortar to remain relevant and will also help brick and mortar to benefit by that added traffic.
I think some of the strategies evolving around satisfying the consumer's immediate gratification. You mentioned Mitch mentioned, buy online, pick up on store. Also, free online returns at store. Also, redemption of online offers within store. Again, that allows the consumer to come back into the store, have another opportunity for the brick and mortar to capture that consumer in an additional mindset to purchase additional, items for their cart. And again, mentioned BOPIS has been the original that has, if you're not doing it, you should. And then again, with those immediate gratification, you can buy it online, picking up in store, those free in-store returns, anything to capture that consumer to come back and to engage with your brick and mortar store. Additionally, I think really enhancing the consumer experience, making sure that they have a great experience within the store, if it's within your technology, what's within the ambiance of the store, to really get them to engage with all the products that are being offered.
I think for us, this is a particularly relevant question because we are a CPG brand that does direct to consumer. So there's not a lot of those. We are foundationally a brick and mortar brand. We started selling in Target in 2015. They've been a really close partner. Probably 80% of our revenue still comes from brick and mortar. So for us, that digital space is the place where we're growing, but our infrastructure is heavily brick and mortar based. Like we are built to sell to Target. We're built to sell to Walmart. And at the same time, like an over dependency on the brick and mortar stores can really hurt your business because if Target does poorly, we do poorly. If Walmart's traffic's down, our traffic is down. So having that digital space to really expand into gives us a lot more levers to pull and a lot of different ways and better ways we can build real relationships with customers. And just like a quick side story, we're doing a partnership with GoPuff right now where we're doing 30-minute fulfillment on our e-commerce site. It's not all products, it's like 10 SKUs. And you order, if you're in a GoPuff service area, you can order them just like you would be ordering on our website and they get delivered to you in 30 minutes. So that's the kind of thing you just don't have that agility to do in the brick and mortar space. And there are more levers like that, I think, every day in digital that really help us compete with our digital competitors because we have these very digitally native brands like the Kardashians brand and like Hum and Ritual and all these really, really flashy, cool brands. But then we also still compete with these very traditional one-a-days and Centrums in the store, in brick and mortar, in Walmart, in Walgreens. So we really have two sets of customers or two sets of competitors that we have to have two completely different strategies for. So for us, it's, the brick and mortar is at the end of the day, it's always going to kind of be our bread and butter, but where we can do the most and learn the most is really in the digital space.
Awesome. How has the D2C model, or how is it changing, the D2C model, how is it changing retail and marketing?
I think for D2C, it's changed quite significantly because basically it allows the brands to own all their data and really be able to follow them through the consumer journey, right? So now you're able to follow the audience and really understand them. And I think that's where you're cutting out the middlemen. I think that's also beneficial. That cost gets passed through back to the consumers. So I think for D2C, there's significant benefits in regards to engaging with your customers directly. So it allows heavily personalization as well. You're able to customize your content to make sure that you're marketing it to specifically one-to-one. So I think that for D2C, it's really beneficial for a lot of consumers where they can engage their brands directly.
So I'm going to answer this question more in the lens of a retailer and how DTC has affected us. One of the things that it forces retailers to do is to kind of up their game as far as selection. So there are certain DTC brands like going back to mattresses. There's Purple mattresses. There's Tempur-Pedic that market direct, and Purple is something that you can't buy in a retail store. Tempur-Pedic now you can. For a while you couldn't. But what Tempur-Pedic did is they were kind of an innovator in the memory foam type of mattress. And what that forces retailers to do, if they're not selling that particular brand is to have inventory and have other brands that can compete specifically with that. So Tempur-Pedic was kind of a going back, they were kind of a disruptor. Now there are major mattress manufacturers that have similar memory foam mattresses, and so these are the things that retailers have to do. Is they have to go after broadening their product offerings so that they can compete with DTC retailers. And the other thing is also getting back to experience. So even if we're talking about brands that retailers carry, so say Calvin Klein, which is something obviously Macy's carry, but Calvin Klein also markets direct to consumer as well. And this goes back to the advantage of integrating brick and mortar, where you may look at Calvin Klein shoes or Calvin Klein shirt on the website, but you don't necessarily know how it looks on you. So by having a brick and mortar presence, it allows people the experience of going, trying it on, seeing how it looks on them, and then making their purchasing decision.
Yeah, as a consumer, again, it gives the consumer multiple options because there's so many additional brands in the space, and they're all competing for your business. So again, you potentially be able to consumer capture on the price point and the variety of products being offered. Now, being on, if you're doing advertising for the brand, it gives an additional opportunity. There's additional competition in the space where, again, as mentioned, everyone has to up their game to ensure that we keep our loyal members or consumers a part of the journey, and trying to bring in new consumers as well. So we're always feeding that beast and ensure that the performance, the ROAS, ROI, whatever your measurement is, continuing to grow.
I think, again, there are a lot of advantages in D2C, and one of those huge advantages is the ability to gather zero-party and first-party data and then use that to create the personalization that you want to have on your website or you want to have in other places. So we've done a lot of different things in the past, a lot of quizzes and that sort of thing, which is great. You can capture a lot of information about what customers are interested in, what they use, how they're using it. I think everybody's probably been in an experience where customers using a product differently than the way you expected them to. The flip side of that is that this world is becoming highly, there's so much emphasis around compliance and data privacy. And so, for example, like we're in the supplement space, it is highly regulated by the FDA. And Talia, I wish we could leave melatonin out on people's pillows, but the FDA would really frown on it. we don't want kids getting their hands on melatonin gummies. But an example of that is like now there are many states are passing consumer privacy health laws. And a lot of that comes from kind of like all of the things in politics that are happening, and there's like period trackers, and there's a concern that that data will be sold to different people, to the government. So states are passing these consumer health laws, which basically means that any health information that a customer gives you, you have to treat it like it's PII. So it's definitely a different, it changes the landscape for how you can gather zero-party and first-party data, and then also how you can use it. But I think the biggest change is like how you store it and how you treat it, because you do have to treat it like it's PII now.
That kind of leads into my last question. What role does data play in shaping successful retail and e-commerce strategies today?
For data, it's really about following the audience around, right? Not in a creepy way. Like, we want to be able to be respectful of how we use that information, but it's, being at an agency working on multiple brands, it is amazing to see how many brands are still on last click attribution and really not understanding the consumer journey. So really utilizing that data through the consumer journey and helping tell that story, because I noticed a lot of brands still really focus on lower funnel and talking about ROI in terms of the attribution conversation. So really understanding that consumer journey and utilizing the data to help define your marketing strategy.
So I'm going to piggyback a little bit on some of the things that Anthony said, all great stuff. I think sometimes, so first of all, obviously data is everything, but not every data point is actionable. So I think it's important to know to separate your KPIs from your diagnostic metrics. And Anthony brought up a very great point regarding attribution. So it's true, there are a lot of retailers that are using last click attribution, and that's kind of what I call like a legacy attribution model. But just because you're using a last click attribution model as your source of truth doesn't mean that you have to optimize based on that. So it's always important to see the user journey, and you can look at a multi-touch attribution model for your optimization, but still report on last click if that is your source of truth. And I think that that's something that will help retailers when trying to avoid cutting off the upper funnel, because something also Anthony touched on, if you're too focused on the bottom of the funnel, you're going to cut off the top of the funnel that actually brings people into the funnel, and you're going to see lower and lower volume.
I mean, data is everything to performance marketers. We utilize that for remarketing tactics. We utilize that for mapping out the consumer journey, where they are in the funnel, how we should be targeting, how we should be messaging them, what landing pages they should be reaching on where they are in that consumer funnel. Again, it allows us to have that personalization where we want to understand the consumer, we want to understand where they are, but we also want to give them the opportunity to make us purchase or convert in a manner where it's very easy to them. That instant gratification where they can find what they're looking for, they can convert, and it's strong performance for the brand. It's also a great experience for the consumer. And again, data is everything. We look at it from a CPC perspective, from a conversion perspective, and it's always how can we achieve better results, and what data can we utilize in market to improve the consumer experience, but also the brand experience or our own client's experience.
For us as an omni-channel retailer, that is in itself a huge challenge. And one of the things that we constantly are trying to fix and identify is channel shift. It's really hard for us to understand if a customer has churned or if they're just shopping in a different channel. So the data that we get, and anybody in the CPG space knows what a nightmare this is. Like, identity resolution is the nightmare of the CPG world. And the way Walmart stores customer data is one way. The way Target stores it is a different way. The way we store it on direct-to-consumer in our CRM is a different way. So we have that problem. And then also we have different demographics that make up each channel. Like, our customers that shop on Amazon tend to be a little bit younger than the customers that shop on our D2C site. So we have these very individualized demographics in each channel that are kind of fascinating, but the challenge ends up being that the data you gather doesn't always necessarily represent your whole customer base. So that identity resolution piece has been really hard for us. And I think that kind of reflects back on the way our teams are structured internally. So we have channel managers for each channel, and everybody kind of has their channel goals. But one of the things I think that's so important when you're structured this way and when you're in a company that's selling omnichannel is that you have to understand that all boats rise, and that channel owners can't be rewarded or penalized based on channel shift, because a sale is a sale, a product's a product. And we've been really lucky to have kind of that philosophy from the top down around, like, we are all working together. We all have a goal. We all want to sell as many supplements and vitamins as we can. But I have seen in other brands where it can get really channel competitive, and that creates a pretty tough environment, because then you're using data against each other instead of using data kind of for the greater good of your brand. So for us, that has been, we're lucky to have the infrastructure that we do, and the understanding that our upper funnel ads serve all the channels. Our lower funnel ads serve also all the channels. So that, I think, is one of the ways that data can kind of divide, or you can use data to unite. And we've been really lucky to be able to use it to unite.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Are there any questions from the audience?
Okay, so my question is, as a large retailer, how do you figure out what the right mix of direct-to-consumer investment is? And I ask that question because, as you know, Nike notably has moved, they moved away from a lot of their partnerships that they have with, like, say, Foot Locker and Cabela's, et cetera. But that's had a negative impact to their business because now that's given shelf space to the Ons and the Hokas of the world, right? So then it's like, what does the data then not prove as valuable that you got from being DTC because you've actually made space for competitors that are now growing in that shelf space that you left in the hopes of going completely DTC?
I think I would give a very consulting answer that it's going to vary, right? Because it really varies by vertical. I think it varies if you're the market leader or not, or you're a challenger brand. So I think that in terms of the mix, right, it's how competitive your space is and really understanding that landscape. So, I don't think that there's a silver bullet in regards to, the amount of budget that you should be spending on a particular brand. I think it's just more about testing and learning depending on the channels and utilizing stuff like to really identify what the proper mix is.
So we, as a retailer who kind of competes with DTC brands, we don't necessarily tailor our budgets or our efforts around what their efforts are. We obviously monitor competition, but some of the things it's kind of it can go two ways. Sometimes what we found is when brands that we carry, when they reduce their marketing budget, it can have either a positive effect on our sales or a negative effect. And it really boils down to, are they targeting upper funnel and awareness, or are they targeting lower funnel? So if they're targeting lower funnel and conversions, if they increase their marketing budget, it could have a negative effect on our sales. If they decrease their marketing budget, then people will be more likely to convert with us. But if they're targeting more upper funnel and awareness, and if they reduce their budget for that, that could also have a negative effect because there are less product-specific or brand-specific searches on those brands. So what we really do is we really just look at our own data, see where the revenue is, where the sales are, where the conversions are, and make decisions based on that.
In my experience, there have been two factors. One is the confidence in the data, and what is your model? Is it last click? Is it multi-touch? And that depending on the value assigned to a particular channel or tactic. And then the other piece is finance. Speaking with our finance people, what their goals are for the overall organization. If it's a certain amount of sales, if it's a certain amount of return on investment, and that plays a role in deciding that channel mix based off that how confident you are in the data that you're collecting.
I don't think that applies to us. You can buy us literally anywhere. We're not too good for any channel. You can buy us at the gas station. We're there. We're at the airport. You'll find it.
Yeah, but Trey, to answer your question more directly, if the idea is to move money around, I would always tell CMO, you probably just need to spend more money, right? Like, I mean, sometimes that's a lot of the conversation, right? They just lower funnel, you should be funding it as much as you're getting the positive ROI, and you want to be able to spend as much money in brand to help develop the brand. So for the Nike example you spent, that you were alluding to, is that they probably should have kept the brand in terms of the amount that they were spending and yet start grow their D2C with additional budget rather than shifting budget around.
We've got time for one more. And if you don't mind saying your name and your company name also. Anybody?
Yuji Nagaki, the hottest free agent in marketing right now, just FYI. So my question is, within the retail, it's pretty common that you guys have a lot of products to sell. And then from my POV as a consumer, I've seen advertisements where you would advertise just your brand in general, just saying like, hey, we have a lot of things, shoes, clothes, all this stuff. Then there are times where you guys focus on one specific product out of all the giant products. So how do you balance between diversification and amplification of your products?
I can start with that one. I think that's a great question. We have 70 SKUs. So vitamins is a pretty broad topic with a lot of variation there. And so we spend quite a bit of money on very upper funnel, very brand forward marketing on just brand. But at the same time, we take our, Macy's has far more SKUs than us, I will say, first of all, but we do have these subsets of products. So we have gut health, we have multivitamins, we have women's health, we have different segments of products, which means we have different segments of customers. So for us, what we try to do, we think we do it pretty well, is to show up in those places where those customer segments are. So like connected TV and, Bravo. Somebody brought up Bravo earlier. Like, yeah, we're all over Bravo. If you watch anything there, you'll find it because our primary audience is millennial women. So I think that has been kind of our approach is to, definitely there's money that's just brand, but then there are different times of year where we really break down those product segments and those customer segments and really target those more specifically. We rarely take out one product. It's usually like, are you worried about your gut health? Then here are some things you can buy. They're definitely more themed, but it is challenging, but I think both are very important.
I have a client right now that has a limited amount of products in their offering, and a few of their products have strong market penetration. It's very well known, and they are tops in that certain category. However, we do get direction on a brand new product that's going into market, and their sole focus is strong market penetration where they need to outrank their competitors. And again, it's about their goals and the investment they have allocated. And we try to have that balance of, okay, we want to support the products that have that strong market penetration already, that are driving those sales, but we also there's a need to support this new product into market, and trying to understand the balance, understanding working with our brand to ensure that we have enough investment to support that product.
So at Macy's, obviously we have a lot of SKUs and across many different categories. And as a retailer, when you think of brand marketing, so there's Macy's brand marketing. So for instance, from a search standpoint, people searching on Macy's, but there's also the brands of the products that we carry. So Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, things like that. And so we kind of take all of the above approach. Obviously, we focus a lot on, and we try to fully fund any kind of brand terms related to Macy's. But if someone's searching on a brand term for one of the products that we're selling, we want to show up there. If someone is searching on individual products, we want to show up there. Shopping ads make up the lion's share of our sales, which I would imagine would be that way with everyone here, with the exception of pharma. And so some of that, the decision is kind of made for us. So for instance, when someone is searching on, doing a product-based search, and there are products that convert better, those are going to be served more than products that don't convert as well. And a lot of this happens behind the scenes. A lot of it happens through Google and Microsoft themselves. And it's also when you're targeting audiences, there may be particular audiences that convert better on specific products within a manufacturer or on specific brands within a category. So if someone is searching on earrings, there might be certain brands that convert better for one audience versus the other. So it's always important to break those out. But a lot of that is, again, done through technology and automation.
Final thoughts is that, outside of retail and traditional e-commerce, I worked in auto for over a decade, and the idea of having like a halo product, it really helps. So I was leading Acura for a while, and we put a lot of money for NSX, and we only sold about like 100 something NSX, but it's really about what the aspiration for the other products, right? So really utilizing specific products as halos, and there are certain retail brands that also do that. But knowing the breakout of what that looks like, and other autos have copy suit, like Chevy doing it for Corvette. So there's specific verticals that having a Halo product really helps trickle down to the other products that you have in the lineup.
All right.
Next, we have Andy coming up.
I got what you're talking.
Did you leave something up here? Well, thanks everybody. We're the last people keeping you from lunch, so we'll make this.
Got to keep the energy up.
Yeah, we'll keep it lively. But we've got a great panel here today to talk a little bit about data, audience building, privacy, analytics, and all those fun topics. So there will be a math test at the end of this. So first of all, let me just go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves, please.
Yep. So my name is Allison Scacciati, and I work at Jellyfish. It's a global ad agency. And I have worked on a variety of verticals. My current vertical that I'm on is consumer electronics.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karima Sharif. I'm a managing director at Initiative, IPG Media Brands Company. I've been in the industry a number of years, focused on pharma marketing. And I hail from Philadelphia, so you can just call me the Fresh Princess of Media.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Sperling. I am a media supervisor at Syneos Health. You got to hear from Justin McGinnis a little earlier. He also is from Syneos Health as well. We handle pharmaceutical advertising.
Hi, my name is Caleb Hutchings. I'm also from an IPG agency, Media Hub. I work across the QSR space, wearable space, travel, and a few others.
Awesome. Thanks everybody. So just to we've had all these little icebreakers. So the one will be, what's the most bizarre ad experience you've been targeted with? And actually, don't say it's our weekly meetings, okay?
Now, I'll kick it off. So I recently moved back to Texas, where I'm from. So I have to find all new doctors and dentists, etc., the fun stuff. So I was searching for dentists near me, doing research on different dentists, etc. And then this one dentist company, I guess, found me and kept hitting me with veneer ads. Or denture ads. And I'm like, not quite the demo.
There you
I'm trying to think. I usually search a lot around fashion or shoes, or Bravo, for the housewives. So I don't know if I have anything interesting that I remember, unfortunately.
So mine's a little bit weird. In the early stages of my career, I really thought I was going to do public relations. So I was working at a police department. We were doing a social media campaign, and it was in Manhattan, Kansas, if anyone's familiar. But we had a fake holiday called Fake St. Patrick's Day. So a lot of my searches were about green beer for a time. So I had a local company that was targeting me for green beer, which was very interesting. I'm not a beer drinker.
I have a bold one. I'm going to call out eBay. They're advertising hard on Instagram right now, and it's not related to anything that I purchase off eBay, which is typically motorcycle parts. But it was so unique because it was so specific and maybe a tad bit inappropriate, but it was a Dune-themed sex toys off eBay that's coming through Instagram. So I kept a screenshot if anyone's curious.
Our imaginations are going wild right now.
I don't know where it came from.
But you didn't save it to your phone, right? No.
It was creative.
So how can businesses, help transition? We've talked a lot about, third-party cookies and our reliance, and we're all preparing for the Armageddon or the like, just hurry up and get it over with. How can you transition to more first party or zero party data targeting?
I can jump in and answer that. Well, being in pharma, we've been already ahead of the game here, especially for HCP, or that's healthcare professional marketing. That's any marketing that's going to physicians or dentists or any of your health professionals, where first party data has been really important to us, especially for CRM or also tracking them through a currency we call NPI, which is it's National Prescriber Identifier. It's almost like a physician's or a healthcare provider's I want to say IRS number, because that's how they get paid by Medicare or Medicaid. So that's like our currency that allows us to super target one-to-one to physicians or healthcare providers. So we've already been helping our clients kind of build that out a lot of times. Also collaborating with partners, whether it's on data, technology, content, to kind of keep focusing on those healthcare providers and that NPI, so that we can get that first party data.
I'll kind of stick on the pharma lens for a moment. When we're thinking about healthcare providers, yes, I agree with everything you were saying. But then you also have to think about the patient lens, and we can't target a patient one-to-one. We can't say John Smith, who has ADHD, and we want to target him with a very specific ADHD ad. That's not something we can do. So building out super robust audience profiles to ensure that we're reaching key demographics that we're wanting to target without necessarily breaking the patient confidentiality.
I have one that kind of sounds like a boilerplate answer, but it's been critical this year, starting with a data audit. Just going through step by step how things are tagged, how it's tracked, how it's processed, how it's stored. We work with an extremely mature brand, and once you start flipping over stones, you just realize how things are dropping here and there, how many teams you have within the organization, that you even have an international team that just decides to dabble in something that puts us out of compliance. So I would re-emphasize it more and more that you really need to know every step of that process, where it lives, because then that starts to get into the conversations with the legal teams and compliance, and lets you kind of bake out from there where your targeting goes.
Yeah, I mean, all of us can agree first-party audiences is so necessary, but it is surprising how many businesses are still working to develop a good infrastructure to have first-party data. Because it's not a flip of a switch, it is a long process, but I do agree auditing is the first step to start. And then enhancing your website and analytics and data collection. So what's tagged on the site, but also increasing customer engagement, like forms or surveys, and loyalty programs like tokenomics, Talia. Increasing that as well to be able to leverage. And then additionally, having the content that's personalized. So yes, you build and enhance your data, but having content to leverage against that data. And then the technology. So really maintaining even those big in-depth brands who have a good first-party data, but the ability to continue to manage that first-party data, so like a Salesforce, is super key.
Awesome. This just kind of keeps this conversation going a little bit, as we know the privacy issues are paramount to everybody, even more so in the last couple of years than they have been. So what are some of the tools and practices that you do to build audiences while still respecting that privacy?
Right. I would say the 4 C's, not 4 C's, I'm sorry, 3 C's that we have to really think about for privacy. And it's interesting because the last panel did hit on the Consumer Health Act, which I think Washington was the first state this year, followed by maybe 11 more states. And by 2026, we're going to have 24 more states. So that it's going to be like 2/3. So that's going to be really critical for us to, especially in healthcare or anything that's adjacent, whether, vitamins or anything else, is to really focus on protecting the consumer. And that's why going to those 3 C's, we have to really make sure that we're thinking about consent first. That's very important. But then we also have to make sure we're thinking about content. I think you talked about personalization and making sure that we're personalizing the content. So when we get those, when we get consent, and that we're also providing information that's useful to our audiences. And I think the 3rd C is going to be collaboration. So how do we make sure that we're working with our data partners, our technology partners, our creative partners, to make sure that we're able to stitch together and, again, keep everything. Again, consent is the first part of it.
Consent and transparency.
Yes.
You're actually going to do with that data.
Right.
Not that I read the fine print, but.
I think just one piece there is nothing new, but I think your measurement framework in a lot of ways starts with consent. And I think just to speak to like an example, when we first saw a lot of awareness coming around this and a lot of this regulation come into place, we saw drop-off rates. It was nearly like 40, 60 of people who would opt out. And then as you built that trust behind the brand, or as you communicated some of that transparency in that moment, like more people were opting in, just understanding it would facilitate their choices, their preferences within that brand. So it's definitely helped us across the board, bringing that a little bit more forward in that transparency.
Awesome. So is there some examples maybe you could share about using, we've talked about the first party data, we're getting consent, we're getting insight, but how have you leveraged some of that data to actually, as an example, to build a target audience?
I can jump in on that one. So I actually have had the pleasure of working with AdMedia. I've worked with Emma, Kevin, I see you back there, and Andy.
She tolerates me.
Tolerates for sure. No, I'm kidding. I love you, Andy. But we actually have been able to utilize AdMedia and their ability to target NPIs. I know Karima was already kind of speaking a little bit about NPI targeting. When you think about paid search, which is where I specialize in, you cannot target an NPI within traditional paid search, but we can with AdMedia. So we've been able to utilize them on a couple of our campaigns, one of which has seen a lot of success. We had our healthcare providers spending up to 1:45 seconds on the site versus traditional search sitting around 30 to 45 seconds. So really being able to ensure that we're targeting the correct people that we're wanting to reach, and then actually reaping the benefits of having those users spend a lot more time on site and engaging.
I have one that's kind of for the inverse of it too, which is even exclusionary. We have high frequency users that we know are tried and true fans, will always be coming back to us. And when we have limited budgets, we want to spend that more to get the incremental sale that we might, not always capture. So I think there's some of that inverse that's at play. And then obviously we have a wearables client or a ring. I think I've seen a few in the audience so far. Where we use like active member lists of more engaged users in order to build a propensity behind like PMAX campaigns and things like that to send the right signals to find more users who would be apt to remain engaged with the product. So I feel like those are two kind of better examples we've had throughout the market this year.
Some examples. So I've been in the industry for a while, as I mentioned, and working on the healthcare side or the healthcare media side, again, targeting HCPs, we've been really successful when we're able to laser focus and do more omni-channel or what we call next best action. So really focusing on that journey of that healthcare provider across multiple channels, including paid and owned media. So we've seen some success when we're whether it's like ROIs, stronger CPCs, stronger CTRs. So I think the more that we're able to partner and get to that kind of one-to-one, and track that journey across the omni-channel universe, we have seen really stronger lifts in scripts and ROIs. So, which that's like that's the currency or the goal that you're looking for.
So kind of picking back off of what you said, Caleb, for a suppression example, back on my travel vertical, we knew that the loyal customers would come back to a resort probably once every 12 months. So we made sure once a booking happened that we excluded them from our campaigns, because the likelihood is they're researching, the FAQs or how to get there or just things about the resort. So we didn't want them to click on our paid ads. And then additionally, and I believe, Brett, you were speaking to this earlier, wherever you are, is for those loyal and returning customers, and if you have them segmented by those really active, however you want to call them, members, if we have a new resort, still my travel vertical example, and we have a brand new resort, we need to get the brand awareness out, we target them specifically with that one resort to drive brand awareness for that resort. So leaning in the more engaged and loyal customers.
Interesting. We've talked a lot about data and targeting and creating that one-to-one experience. But are there any strategies that you implement to ensure the privacy issue, the data privacy, the consumer privacy issues, and also so it's not in a creepy way that you're getting either left out or being targeted? Like what are some ways that you leverage to ensure you're keeping people's privacy?
Well, I mean, that's a number one issue for us because we're in pharma, so we can't even. We're very conservative, so some of the things that we do again goes back to what I talked about earlier of just having that consent, that transparency. Creating those target lists. Or customer lists, at least on the HCP side. I think on the kind of the patient or consumer side is working with partners or platforms that are being very transparent and how they're working with their different customers and partnering with them, so you're doing something in a compliant way. So I think that's where my experience comes from.
I would agree. I feel like everything you said, I would second, being in the pharma industry. I would layer in that a lot of the conversations that we've been having with our analytics team is about cookie policies on websites. I'm sure if you've ever been to a pharmaceutical website, you've seen the giant opt-in or opt-out screens. And then also having the ability to opt in and out of email streams as well.
I feel like your question has kind of like two parts of it in the way that I see it. One is the stewardship part, is how do you maintain it and how do you make sure that it's staying that way? And then the other part is how do you make the customer feel that it's transparent and they're open to that tracking? On the first side of it, so on the agency side, we work with the client, their privacy counsel within their side, their analytics team within their side, and then the marketing team. So there's three separate groups that we are trying to educate as we're learning ourselves exactly how Google exactly is processing things. Like they even need to know the specific hashing code in order to understand how it's being processed so that legal can understand the language and run that through. So that's been a major challenge this year because we had to plant the seed really early on just to get to the process of this year to get buy-in from legal to move forward. And that revolves around conversations about enhanced conversion tracking and some of that conversion measurement. But sometimes legal teams just want to shut that down immediately because they don't understand all the ins and outs. And then we work them back to the table through that education.
Yeah. And I would say that goes back to collaboration. You do really have to collaborate with your clients across the different stakeholders and across different channels that you want to put into the marketplace. So if we're thinking about search and anything from a paid media perspective, we're also thinking about other platforms, whether it's social media or other digital experiences. So it's making sure that you are collaborating across those different stakeholders because it's multiple stories and multiple conversations that you have to get things approved. And when we think about healthcare marketing.
Awesome. We talked a little, this lead into the last question. We've talked a lot about data and analytics, and AI's come up a couple of times today. So how are you leveraging any AI tools or reporting tools from a data analytics standpoint to help you be more efficient?
Yeah, I can kick that one off. So agencies love their proprietary tools, but our agency created a specific reporting dashboard that leverages AI, and it's able to pull data from multiple sources across multiple channels, and it provides it in a dashboard that gives you real-time data, so you can quickly identify trends. It sets it up visually as well, and that enables us to save time by pulling data more manually and also more siloed. So just ultimately providing a more effective way to get insights for our clients. And then also the other side to that is it saves us time by pulling that data to be more strategic. So reporting is a big one for us.
Yeah, I would agree. I think stitching together a lot of the data sources is where AI comes into play. Also, from a content perspective, like we're utilizing a lot of AI in dynamic content optimizations now. You see it across different platforms or different media channels, but even from a for instance, like emails that we may want to send to, our target list of physicians, how we could easily change the look and feel of that content, change the patient out from, a black man for like cardiology, something for cardiology versus, having even Spanish language, show up. So it's really important. It's been really important for us to have AI to help us get to the next level and how we want to communicate across, again, creative content as well as stitching together the data sources that we're seeing across different platforms.
I'll layer into the content piece as well. A lot of what we're using AI for is understanding the ad content that we're putting out. Is cost language more efficient and getting engagement from our users, or is savings language more efficient? So really being able to very quickly understand how we need to pivot in the marketplace to best appease our audience and ensure that we're getting the engagement that we're wanting to see.
I would actually tie a part back to the onboarding conversation from an earlier panel where a lot gets promised in those pitches, and our poor agency analytics teams have to build it out after that and end up getting strapped for time. And I think this is a perfect application where it can streamline their operations across like multiple data sets, finding original trends to dive deeper into off of like quick analysis. We do have tools that analyze auction insights where we come into it with a prompt that has a thesis that we've seen, rising competition from certain competitors. And that can quickly get us to an answer to or a metric to dive deeper into. So that's been super helpful. And then also from clients, we get a lot of forecasting requests for analysis of what we expect or next best decisioning that was kind of mentioned earlier to model out where we expect it to go. And AI helps facilitate that across analytics teams.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add too, at least from an effective way to leverage first-party data, goes back to what you just said. What message is actually resonating more with the customer? The importance of A/B testing. So ideally, perfect world, yeah, it makes more sense to use that language for these sets of customers, but you really don't know unless you're A/B testing. And then you can use AI to help with that reporting and analysis too.
Awesome. Thanks. I think we've got a couple minutes for questions. Does anybody have any questions?
Making you work.
Okay, so if you've got a question, please raise your hand and say, start with your name and the company that you're with. So,
Hope no one's here from eBay.
yay.
So Brooke, BB Clark and Myler. So I guess my question is in terms of measurement, using data, using testing as you described. One of the things that I've seen is really important is incrementality testing, but I think proving it out is pretty difficult. So how have you guys used data or observed the trend of data in your day-to-day in terms of proving out some of that impact?
Well, I would say we do a lot on a test and learn side of things, especially when we're trying to find new audiences or have new partnerships. Some of the projects I worked on most recently is around getting data in real time, but in pharma, real time is probably like a week behind, where we're getting a lot of data, the engagement data from our partners to see, like, are we moving the needle with a physician or a writer versus a non-writer, and like, did they engage with our asset or with our program? And so by the next week, we're able to say, okay, they did engage, let's put them on the next track of the journey. Or if they didn't engage, like, do we need to create more frequency? So that's how we've been looking at the data, at least from my experience, where we're trying to find those nuggets to see if those audiences are engaging with our content, with our programs, and then moving them across the journey.
Yeah, the incrementality piece is sometimes a challenge to actually figure out, but GeoLift studies, I know is a good way, but also we have been using GA4 for some of our clients who leverage GA4 to see what channels are actually driving lift by looking at it holistically. That's a kind of a broad answer, but a couple ways.
All right. Hi, it's Vildana again from Henkel. Very interesting discussion. Thank you very much. I actually want to ask to Alison, but it might be to all of you. You mentioned about the A/B testing and to just validate the message to the target group. Well, obviously, we have many target groups, right? And how can the data-driven marketing, with different assets, with different messaging, could be tested? Is it an ABCD testing, or with the AI there are other different methods? I mean, feel free to also step in, because I think this topic is evolving. I want to understand how it's basically in your areas. Thank you.
That's a great question. We don't necessarily default to ABCD. We like to have that control group. So whatever that control messaging is, and then testing it against the testing messaging. And we want that testing to be specific rather than multiple testing variations within that. But to your point, now that we have more ability with AI reporting, that could be changing. But for us, we're still the traditional A/B testing. You have your control and your variant.
I think also that's where AI is coming in, where it is kind of doing it all at once, where you're kind of in the moment testing multiple assets at the same time it's optimizing to what is performing. Obviously, we talk about the different audience segments where you're getting more specific, but I do think that's a better consolidation of efforts and getting us to an answer faster too, like in the moment. Is particularly behind app campaigns, and a lot in that space is working pretty efficiently.
Yeah, and I would say KPIs are super important with that, because you want to have your KPI identified before the testing, and it might vary between what you're testing, of course, but having that measurement in place going into it, rather than looking at everything and it gets overwhelming and lost in the sauce, as some say. But yeah, having your KPI is really important.
All right, cool. Anybody else?
Oh, another question.
Over here.
Yeah,
okay.
How's it going? Brian from Ariat. So I've heard a lot of talk about propensity modeling and kind of trying to categorize consumers by like their loyalty. In what ways do you leverage these categories in data, and how are you able to effectively, like, how does the messaging shift as one person passes from one group to the next?
I can kick it off from this end. I think in the QSR space behind Chipotle, I think they're pretty advanced in that, and it comes down to their loyalty programming. So there aren't really buckets of rewards that you kind of just like they send out to people. Like, it's actually catered very specifically, and the points can even like vary based on the users and how it varies. So I do think they've done a lot of work to identify like I should say like segments of their audience that do add a lot more value. There's everything from within kind of the high to low frequency, they've built out more buckets beyond that around like personas essentially. and knowing what value they add to the business. And I think that develops kind of how they're creating that messaging, but also the incentives behind that loyalty, how they're sending them out to those different users in those segments.
Yeah, I would say understanding your audience, especially when we're thinking about those different segments. So, and when we're thinking about physician marketing, you have some physicians that may be already writing that prescription for that cardiology drug, and then you may have a segment of physicians that are not. So it's easy for us to kind of look at those two different segments, understand what are their, what type of information is relevant for them, who's their patient population, and then really partner with like the creative agency or a lot of times our media partners to just figure out what type of information can we give them to get them to write that prescription. So sometimes it's a long journey from like awareness to writing, but that's how we can look at those two different segments and help them across the journey to get them to write the prescriptions.
And then I would also layer in that when you think about like a patient journey, right? We're not targeting John Smith who just got diagnosed with ADHD, but we are targeting someone who is looking for what is ADHD. I just got diagnosed. So really having messaging that's speaking towards, hi, I understand you just got diagnosed. Here's some information about ADHD versus someone who is already on treatment, who then you can say, hi, I know you're on treatment. Here is a page specific for resources and support for X brand that you might be on.
All right, cool. We have time for probably two more. Oh, come on.
Smart group. Everybody wants to get to lunch.
Yeah. Going once, going twice.
Okay, we're good? All right. Okay, Andy, I'm going to bring the mic back to you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for the great panel and all the great content this morning. We've got lunch that's getting ready right outside here. We'll be back here tonight for, I think, right out in the same area for dinner. You should have gotten a note about your activities, but Lacey's going to take the mic from you.
Hi, guys. Okay, so I sent out an email with the activity assignment sheet linked again so you can see what your assignments are. Note that there is 2 tabs on the bottom. So there's one for today and one for tomorrow. Some people didn't see that, so I just want to make sure everyone knows. And then in the email I sent out, it says like the specific times and then where to go for your activity. If you have any questions or concerns regarding activities, I'm going to stay up here for a minute so then it's easy to find me so we can talk about it. But thank you, and I hope you enjoy lunch.
Thanks.